Hello and welcome to another Unmasked episode of So What's on Your Mind? I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, and today we are reaching out to the best, in my opinion, the best at grassroots basketball and one of the brightest minds in the entire basketball community. He has more than 35 years of official experience, is what I'm going to say, at all levels, including a college coach and president of the largest basketball camp clinics, team tournaments in the country. We're here to find out what is going on in his world, from politics, life, education, sports. It could be music, health, whatever he wants to talk about today. He can speak his mind on it, and I'm gonna let him do it. Today's guest, intelligent young man, and I say that because we do share a birthday, and not the same day, but we don't talk about his age, but he's still young. I've known him for more than 25 years, and he's been there for me, from the start of my career, and he's played a huge part in my career and the decisions I made in my career. He's a Columbia University graduate, and after he finished playing and graduating from college, he became a basketball coach at Monmouth University. He spent 4 years coaching at Monmouth, and then he transitioned into what he is now, Hoop Group. He became an official, official part of it. That's why I said official earlier. Official part of it in 1991, even though he had been part of it his whole life. He's worked as a color commentator for several networks, Comcast Sports and ESPN regional networks. He sits on the board, as you know, you see his shirt on today, ESPN's TBT tournament. I want to say, and then he's also, and I'm gonna give him this official title. He has the official title of Just Figure It Out. That's what he is. So that's his term. Figure it out. I want to welcome to the show, Rob Kennedy. So, Rob, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, what an intro. Holy cow. Based on just all that, you know that even though we do share a birthday and talk to each other on our birthdays every year since he started working for me way back when, you know that your birthday's way after mine. Because I'm getting old if I got all that stuff on my intro. Holy cow. So
what I want to bring you in today, and what's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, as most days, what's on my mind is the NCAA, because somehow they affect all of us. Yesterday was another perfect example when, they came out with new guidelines for the NIL, basically new interpretations, because they have no, because they don't have any legislation in place. God forbid, right? They're, to be honest with you, they're too gutless at this point in time to do that. And so they just let it be, because you talk about a rudderless ship right now. Nobody wants to do anything. Emirates on his way out, take a year to figure out, who's going to replace him. They'll spend a couple $100,000 on a search committee and all this kind of stuff. And, who knows, maybe it'll be a transformative hire, and maybe somebody can come in there and fix it. Nobody has been able to do that for a long time, but it's just another perfect example of, the NCAA getting in their own way. And I don't know any other organization that makes more, silly decisions on stuff, and it just doesn't matter, right? And even when they do good stuff, sometimes then they just turn around and get in their own way. And I will say this: I know a lot of decent amount of people who work at the NCAA that are great people and have the best interest of student athletes in mind, but it is just such a behemoth, and that those people get gobbled up in the bureaucracy of the NCAA many times, and can't make the impact that they had hoped to be able to make when they first got there. And so, to any huge organization like that, like taking $1 billion worth of revenue a year, $1 billion in revenue a year. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard. It's you've got different constituencies. You're trying to serve all, but my goodness, nobody does it worse than they do.
Rob, I can't agree with you more. I mean, it's interesting that you don't have sports people. I mean, they have different mentality. You don't have those people in place, at least to kind of, so they can understand. And like you said, they are very good people there. And it's just amazing. I know you've been fighting all different topics or different things they've done along the years.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's crazy how it is.
And sometimes you feel like Don Quixote, right? I mean, like just fighting windmills all the time, and sometimes that you're going to get stuck. I mean, we were part of a class action lawsuit against them years ago, and they've got a war chest, in which makes it difficult to bring legislation or bring litigation against them. And so I remember we were in this lawsuit, and there were all the different camp operators back then, and tournament operators. A lot of them were part of the lawsuit. And we're going along, and basically NCAA had said that college coaches couldn't work at camps, but they could work at their own camps, and so they were allowing their own camps to have preferential treatment, which so we went, filed the lawsuit, got moving along, and eventually, like 5 months into it, after they've rung up legal bills beyond belief and stuff, I remember being at a deposition, and their lawyer coming in and saying, "What? I don't know what you guys are suing about. I mean, they reinstated the college coaches being able to work camp." And it's like, what do you mean? Well, and like in the middle of the night in late August, they pushed something through. Nobody saw. There was no press release. There's nothing. And sure enough, they just changed the rule. So then all of a sudden our lawsuit kind of went away. And then 2 years later, they took away being able to hire college coaches again. But then they didn't let so it's just like you're sitting there going, oh my goodness, and not only did they run up our legal bills, but they have a built-in system where they've got, a number of different law firms on retainer that every time they pass legislation that's controversial, well, it just means that these people can bill more billable hours. They start churning the files. It's like, yeah, say it's all right. Go ahead, do that. Don't worry, you won't have any antitrust, issues there. Yeah, sure enough, they end up in court. Who wins? Well, the law firm, I'll tell you that much. Who usually never wins, though, in most of their legislation, are the student athletes themselves. Even yesterday's clarifications on the NIL, one of the things in there was that schools were not now going to be able to provide legal counsel, to their student athletes for NIL deals. Like, what are we talking about? That was one of the core things that they did that made all the sense in the world. All the sense in the world, right? Like, again, if a kid wants to get a real NIL deal, right, that is really based on his name, image, and likeness, and not his decision as to what school to go play at, right, then the NCAA should help and allow him or her to do whatever they need. They should provide legal counsel. They should do everything else. What they should stop, and what they don't have the guts to step up and do, is to stop. NIL was for name, image, and likeness, not my signature on a document saying what school I was going to. So right now, we don't have name, image, and likeness. What we have is, if you come to my school, here's how much money you're going to get paid to be able to play. Well, if that's what the system is going to be, then go ahead, make it that system. That would be the greatest thing in the world. Then allow the players to unionize, allow people to get paid, and go down that model, right? But right now we've got a model that makes no sense, because it's a model that some schools are paying you to come to my school and other schools are not. Some are at the same level. Everybody's trying to figure out, now it's like, now it's a race, right? We used to talk about arms races. Used to be who's got the nicest locker room, now it's who's got the biggest collective, and whoever's got the biggest collective should win. Although I guess Texas A&M football is proving that wrong, maybe. But listen, it's not like the rest of them don't have pretty good collectives going too. But again, just to come back after it's been in place, put no legislation in, say this is usurp their responsibilities and say Congress got to take over. Congress take it. Oh Christ, they can't figure anything out. What the hell do you want Congress to figure out what should go on with student athletes? Give me a break. Like fix our economy, get people back, to get inflation under control. Worry about things you should be worrying about. Worry about the war in the Ukraine, not NIL deals for Alabama football, for God's sakes, please. But to and again, we haven't. It's early. This is what's being reported, so who knows? Maybe it's not in there. We take, if we're taking an, a shot at them for, well, fine, they deserve it anyway. It doesn't make any difference. But again, why would you do that? Why would that be your looking at NIL and coming back and saying, well, the schools can't provide legal counsel for kids when they're trying to sign a deal with? Come on now, right? Like, what do we do?
I totally agree with you. I'm glad you kind of summed some things up for me. I've been out the loop, like I don't get in much for the NIL. So you inform me. I'm sure you're gonna inform a lot of other people just by what you said. That was awesome. Because I don't think a lot of people understand it. They think they do.
Nobody understands. Listen, coaches don't understand the NIL, and most, like early on, nobody did. Everybody was like they were afraid to do anything. They didn't know what they, now it's trying to figure out salary cap without having the salary cap, right? So it's like, okay, how much does my collective have? How much can we do it? And to me, it's just, listen, you talk about fighting. Nobody's fought the NCAA more than Sonny Vaccaro, right? And people forget. I don't know if they forget, but obviously Sonny was really the man behind the scenes in the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit, and so now certainly the Alston lawsuit that came after may have even more lasting effects and change on the NCAA than even the Ed O'Bannon case. But the Ed O'Bannon case was the start of the floodgates, and boy, has it been floodgates. I mean, the NCAA is like, is on a losing streak that rivals my alma mater's football streak when I was there, right? Like, no more. They're good again. I was even though they lost homecoming, I was at homecoming last weekend. But like the NCAA, in the court of law, I don't even know the last time they even won a motion, let alone a lawsuit. But yeah, there's more coming down the pipe, and the NCAA that people knew, forget about 40 years ago. How about 5 years ago? How about 4 years ago? 4 years ago, everything was different. Think about it. 4 years ago, we had the Condoleezza Rice Commission, right? Which came in and tried, say what you want. They had good intentions about trying to clean up recruiting, mostly on the men's basketball side. And now not all, but most of the suggestions and things that they basically got rammed through the NCAA to change recruiting, none of it has anything to do with anything anymore. It was pre-NIL. So that's 2.5 years ago. Two things happened. We had COVID, boom, changed everything. And then we had NIL. They can take every single thing that commission did and throw it down the toilet. It just doesn't make any. NCAA camps, they tried it the 1 year, they were a failure. So what are they doing 2 years later? Or is it 2 or 3? I forget, they didn't do it this year because of COVID. They didn't do it because they not do it because of COVID this year. They did it because they realized it was a complete, a disaster. $8 million down the drain. Give it to the freaking student athletes. But guess what? No, they just put something out 2 weeks ago. It's back. Then you talk to everybody and say, I don't really think it's going to be bad. Like, it just, sometimes it's maddening. And, you call people at the NCAA and they're frustrated. They can't give you answers on stuff. They don't know. They don't know what they, but it just, it's too big. And like that's a perfect example. It's like somebody need to say, okay, yes, everything that we did with the Condoleezza Rice Commission, right, made sense at that point. Argue whether you think it's good, bad, or the other. It was at least that there was reasoning for it. But 3 years later, literally, that has nothing to do with anything, right? Like the recruit that, like, in quote, cheating or whatever you want to call that's going on during recruiting has nothing to do with it's not one thing that is cited in that report, and not one solution that came out of that report is meaningful anymore. What they need to do is figure out how you can, when I say clean up NIL, I don't mean figure out how to take money back away from the kids. That's not what they just have to figure out how to make sure that it is not incentive to sign with somebody, as opposed to getting their fair share of what their name, image, and likeness, is generating income for. The problem is that they don't want to touch any of their $1 billion that they're getting, right? So they want it to come from this other. So it's like the Olympic model. Okay, but the Olympic model was based on what you could earn, right? What you could earn as an individual athlete. Okay, that's not what it is anymore. Now it's what you can earn because you're a member of a specific team, right? You're coming to play at Texas A&M for football. Okay, it's not like, and of course, most of those deals, as soon as you no longer play at Texas A&M, that deal doesn't follow you, right? So they sign these deals, then everybody realized, wait a second, we got to make these deals, only go for a year, 9 months, so that if somebody decides to transfer, we don't have to renew it. But whoever was doing that NIL deal, if you got it through the University of Miami or whoever you got it, when you leave, that NIL is not going with you. That's completely different what the concept of NIL was. But the NCAA, because they were so afraid that eventually somebody would have to cut into their revenue, their earnings, right? Like, they never wanted to share any of that revenue with the student athletes. But they said, wait, if these, if other companies and other things will pay the student athletes, let's let them be able to do that. And because they couldn't come up with any legislation that made sense, they just kind of let it go and be the wild, wild west. And that's where we got ourselves into now, where, people, you and I, we both did home visits, right? Like, you went to the home visit, you sat there, most of your presentation was, or at least half of it was non-basketball. It was like your academic support systems, what majors you had, what kind of job opportunities you were going to be able to try to help people with, summer jobs and internships and job placement after that. And a lot of it was basketball, how you were going to fit in, how we played, all that kind of stuff. Now it's a phone call. It's like, okay, you're transferring. Okay, yeah. All right. So we have one other 2 guard, and here's what our NIL deal is. Done. Nobody's talking about, academic, support systems, that kind of stuff. It's like, all anybody wants to know about is, how many minutes am I going to play? How many shots am I going to get? And how much money am I making from NIL?
Yeah. So true. So true.
Recruiting's completely different than it was. So, and I don't mean to sound like an old fogey that it was better the way that it used to be. I'm not saying that. It's just, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but one thing's for sure, the NCAA has zero control of what the hell's going on out there. And I don't see them being able to get a hold of it unless they're forced to by Congress or by, the Supreme Court or somebody else. Other than that, I don't, this new thing with the new governance structure and the new constitution and all that, to me, that's all window dressing and doesn't get to the heart of the issue. And that's if you're going to be an enterprise that is taking in $1 billion, and that's not counting anything any of the schools are making. We're just talking about the NCAA, as the legislative body that's supposed to, oversee and control sports so that it's on a level playing field and all that kind of stuff, that they make $1 billion and nobody wants to share in the revenue to the student athletes. Now, the NCAA will tell you, well, we do share in the revenue because they distribute the money back to the schools. But that money is not getting distributed back to the people who earned you the $1 billion in revenue. So, that ain't.
Well, look, I'm gonna say that this was great this morning. This was great for me. What you said?
I said, now you got me fired up this morning. You were like, what do you want to talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. I think the voting initiative's pretty cool. And then you said, oh, David Aldridge had done that already, which is awesome, right? So like, then you're like, well, but how about the NCAA? And look at that. I'm like a wind-up doll. I'm ready to go.
I knew. Listen, I was hoping that that's what you would do because I know how you feel about that. So that kind of, I'm glad you did talk about that, and it's needed. And I'm gonna end on this, but it's like that's the question is the NCAA knew what they were doing. Once they figured out we don't have to spend our money, and no one asked that question. No one is saying, well, why the NCAA not giving up their portion of it? I mean, they let it run wild, and now they can't get the genie's out the bottle, and they can't get it back in. And that's how they got. I don't know if they're gonna do it. Like you said, I don't know if they're ever gonna be able to do it. So, don't know.
There's huge there's huge legal battles going on a couple of different fronts. In addition to the Alston case, is the stuff in front of the labor board. And if the labor board does, make a final decision that indeed the student athletes are employees of the university, then that'll change everything completely. And I think that's the thing the NCAA is probably most worried about. Right, but that would be the one thing that I think then would change the dynamic to where the NCAA then would be forced to share in the profits to the people who generate it, to the student athletes. But anyway, and that, listen, over the next 4 or 5 years and in shorter period, next 24 months, I think you're going to see a lot more clarity to everything based on the couple of things that are in the pipeline within our legal system. And the NCAA that we see today may be completely different 24 months from today.
I totally agree with you. And I want to thank you again for giving me some time. I know you out of your business schedule, taking out of your business schedule. I appreciate it coming on, giving a chance to people to hear, giving them information. And like I said, I think, and I'll publicly say it now, I always do. I thank you for kind of guiding, helping me with my career when I was 20-some-year-old kid, 20-year-old young man, before I even worked, first camp up at Trenton at the hoop group. So thanks to, I know it was with Chucky Martin. We go back with Chucky Martin. So, wow.
Yep. You and Billy Lynch and everybody from PG County, and those fun days, man. Those are good days.
Yes, it was. Well, Rob, I appreciate it, and you enjoy the rest of your day. And I know I'll be in touch.
My man, Lamar. All right. Talk to you.
Okay.